The crystal halls of the Vallani Council chamber hummed with fear and desperation as Elder Thelnari stood before the gathered representatives of 47 peaceful worlds. Her translucent body pulsed with deep blue light patterns that spoke of grief and terror to those who could read the ancient language of her people. The news from the outer colonies had arrived just 3 cycles ago, and each report brought worse tidings than the last. "The Keth Empire has taken Serenity Falls," she announced, her harmonic voice resonating through the chamber like wind chimes in a storm. Peaceful Garden is under siege, and Crystal Harbor sent their final transmission 6 hours ago, before all communications ceased. The gathered delegates shifted nervously, their various alien forms creating a symphony of worried sounds and movements. Some were tall and plant-like with leaves that rustled when anxious, while others were small and furry with large eyes that now reflected pure terror. Commander Veltar of the Vallani Defense Corps stepped forward. His uniform was designed for ceremony, rather than war, because the Vallani had never needed to fight anyone before. "Elder Thelnari, our ships are not built for combat," he said, his voice carrying the weight of impossible responsibility. "We have trading vessels and exploration craft, but the Keth bioships are massive predatory organisms bred for destruction. Our energy shields cannot stop their acid weapons, and our crews do not know how to fight." He paused and looked around, the chamber at faces filled with hopelessness. "We have never had to learn such things." The truth of his words settled over the council like a heavy blanket. The Vallani Trade Consortium had prospered for thousands of years by being peaceful merchants and explorers. They built beautiful cities that floated in harmony with their planets, ecosystems, and created art that could bring tears to the eyes of any sentient being. Their ships were designed to carry goods and knowledge between stars, not weapons of war. They had always believed that civilization meant leaving violence behind. "What of our allies?" asked Counselor Merdan from the Crystal Harbor delegation, though everyone knew what the answer would be. "Have the Zephyrian Federation or the Golden Ring Collective responded to our requests for aid?" His question hung in the air like a dying echo because they all knew that help was not coming. Thelnari's light patterns shifted to the deep purple of profound sadness. "The Zephyrians say they cannot spare ships from their own defense. The Golden Ring Collective has closed their borders and will not allow Keth ships to pass through their space, but they will not fight either. The Peaceful Alliance sends their sympathies and prayers, but no weapons or warriors." She looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had never imagined they would need to discuss such terrible things. "We are alone in this fight." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds as delegates spoke in their various languages, all expressing the same sentiment of despair and confusion. How could a civilization that had existed peacefully for millennia suddenly be forced to become warriors? How could they fight an enemy that was born for conquest when they were born for trade and art and the sharing of knowledge? General Krexvor of the Keth Empire stood on the bridge of his massive bioship, looking at the tactical display that showed Vallani space spread out before him like a feast waiting to be consumed. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed with the bioluminescent, patterns that marked him as a high-ranking predator, and his mandibles dripped with the acidic saliva that was both weapon and symbol of his species' dominance. Around him, his officers worked at stations that were grown rather than built, their hands manipulating living controls that responded to thought and chemical signals. "Report on the outer colonies," he commanded, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that made lesser species flee in terror even through translation devices. The sound was designed by evolution to trigger prey responses in most organic nervous systems, and the Keth had learned to use this biological advantage in their conquest of other worlds. "Serenity Falls has been completely processed," replied his tactical officer, using the Keth term for the systematic harvesting of all useful biological and technological resources from a conquered world. The population centers offered no resistance, and the planetary defense grid was neutralized within the first hour of engagement. Peaceful Garden continues to resist, but their weapons cannot penetrate our bioarmor, and their shields fail against our acid cannons. Crystal Harbor has gone silent, and our scout ships report total compliance. Krexvor's mandibles clicked together in the Keth expression of satisfaction. These Vallani were exactly what the Empire needed. Rich worlds with advanced technology but no warrior culture to defend them. Their bioships could process the Vallani genetic material to create new hybrid warriors, while their worlds would provide resources for the next phase of expansion. It was almost too easy. What of their communication arrays? He asked, because the Keth had learned from previous conquests that desperate species sometimes sent out calls for help that could complicate their campaigns. Are they attempting to contact other powers? Intercepted transmissions show standard diplomatic requests to known allied species, the communications officer reported. All requests have been declined or ignored. The Vallani appear to have no military allies capable of meaningful resistance. The officer paused and checked her readings again. They are broadcasting a general distress signal on all known hyperspace frequencies, but such calls rarely receive response from species outside their immediate political sphere. Krexvor nodded his massive head in approval. The galaxy was full of civilizations that claimed to value peace and cooperation, but when faced with real danger, they always chose self-preservation over helping others. It was a weakness that the Keth Empire had exploited for centuries as they expanded their territory by consuming worlds that had no one willing to defend them. Back in the Vallani Council chamber, Elder Thelnari had made a decision that surprised, even herself. "We will send out a general distress call," she announced, her light patterns shifting to the bright silver of desperate determination. "Not just to our known allies, but to every spacefaring civilization in our galactic database. Someone somewhere must be willing to help." The chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. A general distress call would reach hundreds of species, including many that the Vallani had never contacted before. Some might be hostile, some might be indifferent, and some might be so alien that communication would be impossible. But what choice did they have? "Elder," said Counselor Merdan carefully, "there are species in the outer spiral arms that we know nothing about. Some are rumored to be dangerous predators themselves. Are we certain we want to attract their attention?" His concern was shared by many in the chamber who remembered old stories and warnings about regions of space that peaceful species avoided. Thelnari's light patterns flashed with brilliant white determination. "If we do nothing, the Keth Empire will destroy everything we have built over thousands of years. Our children will be enslaved or worse, and our culture will be lost forever. If there are dangerous species out there, at least some of them might consider the Keth a greater threat than we are." She paused and looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who were running out of options. "We have nothing left to lose." The vote was swift and unanimous. Within an hour, the most powerful communication arrays in Vallani space were broadcasting a desperate plea for help on every known hyperspace frequency. The message was simple and direct. "This is the Vallani trade. Consortium requesting immediate military assistance. We are under attack by the Keth Empire and facing extinction. Any spacefaring civilization willing to provide aid, please respond. We offer all our technological and cultural knowledge in exchange for help in defending our people." The message traveled through hyperspace lanes that connected thousands of star systems, reaching civilizations that had never heard of the Vallani and others that had dismissed them as irrelevant traders. Most ignored the call or sent polite refusals, but in a sector of space that most species avoided, something different happened. Lieutenant Yun Ho was monitoring deep space communications from his station aboard the human vessel Titan's Watch when the Vallani distress call reached human space. He read the message twice before calling his superior officer, his hands trembling slightly as he realized what he was looking at. "Commander, you need to see this immediately," he said, his voice tight with excitement and concern. "We just received a general distress call from an unknown species requesting military assistance against something called the Keth Empire. Commander Li Jin arrived at the communication station within minutes and read the message for herself." Her expression grew more serious with each line as she realized the implications of what they were seeing. "How long has this signal been broadcasting?" she asked, checking the timestamp and signal strength. "Approximately 6 hours," Yunho replied. "And Commander, I've been monitoring the response traffic. Most major galactic powers are declining to assist. The few that have responded are offering prayers and sympathy but no ships or weapons." He paused and met her eyes. These Villani, whoever they are, they're truly alone in this fight. Li Jin stared at the message for a long moment before making the decision that would change Yi. Admiral Tae-min stood in the command center of Titan Station, the most heavily fortified military installation that existed anywhere in known space, though no other species knew it was there. The station was built inside a hollowed-out asteroid, in a system that officially did not exist on any galactic charts, hidden behind layers of stealth technology that made it invisible to every scanning method the galaxy had developed. Around him, dozens of officers worked at stations that displayed information about military assets, ship movements, and intelligence gathered from across the galaxy through methods that other species could not even imagine. The Admiral was a tall man with cybernetic implants covering the left side of his face and neck, scars from a battle fought decades ago when humanity had first encountered hostile aliens in the deep frontier regions. His natural eye was brown and warm, while his cybernetic replacement glowed with a soft blue light that could analyze tactical situations faster than any organic brain could process. He had been commanding human military forces for 30 years, and in that time he had seen things that would break the minds of most peaceful species. "Sir, the Villani distress call has been confirmed authentic," reported Colonel Hae Jin, the leader of humanity's most elite marine battalions. She was a compact woman with muscles like steel cables and scars on her hands from training in environments that would kill most aliens within minutes. Her uniform was practical and black, designed for combat rather than ceremony, and her weapons were always within easy reach. "Our deep space monitoring stations have verified that the Keth Empire is indeed destroying Villani colonies, and the galactic community is refusing to intervene." Taemin nodded as he studied the tactical displays that showed everything humanity knew about the situation. The screens revealed more intelligence than any other species could gather because humans had been secretly watching galactic civilization for over a century while remaining hidden in the regions that other species called the quarantine zone. "What do we know about these Keth?" he asked, though he suspected his intelligence officers already had detailed files prepared. Dr. So-Young stepped forward with a data tablet in her hands, her scientific mind already analyzing the biological and psychological profiles of the attacking species. She was one of humanity's leading experts in xenobiology and had spent years studying the various alien species that existed throughout the galaxy, preparing for the day when humanity would need to interact with them. "The Keth Empire is a predatory civilization that has conquered approximately 40 star systems over the past 2 centuries, she reported. "They use biological technology, essentially living ships that can adapt and grow during combat. Their psychology is based on dominance hierarchies, and they view other species as either resources to be harvested or obstacles to be eliminated." Commander Jun Woo, the chief tactical officer, pulled up additional displays showing Keth military capabilities and combat doctrine. He was a thin man with intense eyes who could analyze enemy movements and predict battle outcomes with an accuracy that bordered on supernatural. "Their bioships are formidable, but they follow predictable attack patterns based on biological imperatives," he said, his fingers dancing across holographic controls that brought up detailed analysis of Keth vessels. "They rely on intimidation and overwhelming force rather than tactical sophistication. Against species that have never fought a real war, these tactics are very effective." Taemin studied the information for several minutes while his officers waited silently. They all knew that whatever decision he made would have consequences that reached far beyond this single conflict. Humanity had remained hidden from galactic civilization for good reasons, and revealing themselves now would change everything about how they existed in the universe. "Sir," said Captain Yoon-suk, the youngest ship commander in human military history, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. "The 7th Fleet is ready for deployment. We have 12 heavy battleships, 36 destroyers, 48 frigates, and full fighter support. Our ships are equipped with quantum weapons and adaptive armor systems that should be more than sufficient to handle biological vessels." The 7th Fleet was humanity's most advanced naval force, equipped with technology that was centuries ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Their ships were built using materials and energy sources that other species had only theorized about, and their weapons could target enemies across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each vessel was commanded by officers who had trained for combat in environments ranging from the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres to the radiation-soaked space around dying stars. "What about our stealth capabilities?" Tamian asked, because maintaining the element of surprise would be crucial if they decided to intervene. Humanity's greatest advantage was that no one knew they existed as a military power, and revealing that advantage carelessly could have devastating consequences. "Our quantum cloaking systems remain undetectable by any known scanning technology," replied Chief Engineer Min-jun, a stocky man whose understanding of advanced physics allowed him to maintain weapons and engines that operated on principles most species had never discovered. "We can decloak simultaneously across the entire fleet and achieve complete tactical surprise. Our ships will appear to materialize from empty space." Dr. So-young looked up from her analysis of the Vallani situation and added crucial context that would influence their decision. "Sir, the Vallani appear to be a genuinely peaceful civilization. Their technology is advanced but entirely focused on trade, exploration, and cultural development. They have no military experience and their ships are completely defenseless against a predatory species like the Keth. If we do not intervene, they will be completely destroyed within days." The Admiral walked to the main viewing screen that displayed a map of the local galactic region with Vallani space highlighted in blue and Keth territory marked in red. The red was expanding steadily into the blue as the invasion continued, and no help arrived from anywhere in the galaxy. He thought about the standing orders that had guided human policy for decades: remain hidden, gather intelligence, and only reveal themselves when absolutely necessary for human survival. "Sir," said Colonel Hyojin, "my Marines are ready for immediate deployment. We have been training for years to fight in alien environments, and our combat suits can operate in any atmosphere these species require. If the Keth use biological ships, we can board them and fight on their own vessels using weapons designed specifically for that purpose." Wing Commander Da-un, the leader of humanity's most skilled fighter pilots, stepped forward with her own assessment. "Our fighters have been upgraded with new quantum engines that allow three-dimensional combat maneuvers impossible for ships using conventional physics. Against biological vessels that think in terms of natural movement patterns, we should have significant advantages in speed and tactical flexibility." Tae-min considered everything he had heard while studying the faces of his officers. These were men and women who had trained their entire lives for combat against unknown enemies, who had spent years preparing for the day when humanity would need to fight for its survival or for principles that mattered more than survival. They were ready for war in ways that no peaceful species could understand. "The Keth Empire represents exactly the kind of threat we have been preparing to face," he said finally, his voice carrying the weight of command decisions that would echo across the galaxy. "A predatory civilization that destroys peaceful species and grows stronger with each conquest. If we allow them to eliminate the Vallani, they will continue expanding until they eventually discover human space." Commander Jun-woo nodded in agreement. "Our analysis suggests that the Keth expansion pattern will bring them into contact with our outer colonies within 50 to 70 years if they are not stopped. Better to face them now when they are fighting someone else than wait for them to turn their full attention to us." The Admiral made his decision with the decisive speed that had kept humanity alive through dozens of conflicts with hostile aliens that the peaceful galaxy knew nothing about. "Deploy the 7th Fleet immediately. Full combat loadout, quantum stealth approach, and total communications blackout until we reach the combat zone. This will be humanity's first contact with galactic civilization, and we need to make an impression that will discourage future aggression against peaceful species." Captain Yoon-suk smiled with the fierce joy of a predator finally released to hunt. "Sir, what are our rules of engagement? The Keth use biological ships with crew members who may surrender if faced with superior force. The Keth Empire has made the choice to become a threat to peaceful civilizations," Tae-min replied, his cybernetic eye glowing brighter as tactical systems activated. "They will have the opportunity to withdraw from Vallani space when they realize what they are facing. If they choose to continue fighting, we will demonstrate why humanity survived on a death world for millions of years, while other species developed in safety." Dr. So Young began preparing cultural and biological data that would be crucial for first contact with the Volani once the military situation was resolved. The space around Serenity's edge was filled with the massive biological forms of Keth warships, their living hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of hunger and dominance to anyone who understood their alien language. General Krexivor stood on the bridge of his flagship, a creature that was part ship and part organism, watching the final bombardment of the Volani homeworld's orbital defenses with satisfaction. The defending ships were beautiful crystalline vessels designed for exploration and trade, but they shattered like glass under his acid cannons and bioplasma weapons. "The planetary shields are failing," reported his tactical officer, her chitinous claws clicking against the living controls that responded to her biochemical commands. "Estimated time to complete penetration is 3 hours at current bombardment rates. The Volani defense fleet has been reduced to less than 20% operational capacity, and those remaining ships are retreating to the far side of their moon." Krexivor's mandibles clicked together in the Keth expression of satisfaction as he studied the tactical displays that showed his bioships surrounding the Volani homeworld like predators circling wounded prey. This conquest was proceeding exactly as planned, and soon his empire would have access to Volani technology and biological resources that would fuel the next phase of their expansion into new sectors of the galaxy. Elder Thelnari stood in the Emergency Command Center deep beneath the surface of Serenity's edge, her translucent body flickering with light patterns that showed despair and determination in equal measure. Around her, the remaining members of the Volani Council worked frantically to coordinate the evacuation of civilians to underground shelters, while their few remaining ships tried desperately to buy time for the rescue operations. "Any response to our distress calls?" she asked, though she already knew what the answer would be. For 18 hours they had been broadcasting pleas for help to every known civilization in the galaxy, and the few responses they had received were expressions of sympathy accompanied by explanations of why military assistance was impossible to provide. "Only one," replied Communications Officer Shenadal, his voice carrying both hope and confusion. "We received a message from an unknown source saying, 'Message received. Fleet dispatched. Hold position.' The signal originated from a sector of space that our star charts show as uninhabited." Thelnari felt a flicker of hope despite the desperate situation. Someone was coming to help, though she could not imagine who would be willing to face the terrible power of the Keth Empire when all the great civilizations of the galaxy had chosen to remain safely distant from the conflict. Above them, Captain Velimor of the Volani Defense Corps was leading the last functional ships in a hopeless delaying action against biovessels that outmassed his entire fleet by factors of hundreds. His ship, the Crystal Harmony, was a beautiful vessel designed for diplomatic missions and cultural exchanges, but its energy weapons were barely scratching the armored hides of the Keth predators. "Sir, we are receiving massive energy readings from the outer system," reported his sensor officer, her voice tight with confusion and disbelief. "Multiple contacts are appearing on long-range scanners, but the signatures do not match any known ship types. They appear to be approaching at velocities that should be impossible for vessels of their apparent size." Velimor turned toward the tactical display and felt his heart stop as he saw what the sensors were detecting. 12 enormous contacts were racing toward the battle zone at speeds that violated everything the Volani understood about physics and engineering. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases, and the geometric patterns were angular and aggressive in ways that suggested these ships were designed entirely for combat. General Krexivor was studying the bombardment reports when his communications officer suddenly straightened with alarm. "General, we are detecting multiple hyperspace emergence points throughout the combat zone. Unknown vessels are appearing at coordinates that suggest tactical positioning rather than random arrival." "Impossible," Krexivor replied, his mandibles clicking with irritation. "Our scouts have confirmed that no major military powers responded to the Volani distress calls. What species could deploy a fleet this quickly, and why have we never encountered them before?" The answer came as 12 human warships simultaneously deactivated their quantum cloaking systems and appeared in normal space around the Keth fleet, like ghosts materializing from empty darkness. The vessels were unlike anything that existed anywhere else in the galaxy, their hulls covered with weapons systems that seemed designed by minds that understood violence in ways that peaceful species could never comprehend. Captain Yoon-suk stood on the bridge of the Soul's Revenge, humanity's most advanced battleship, watching as her tactical systems analyzed the Keth biovessels with the cold efficiency of predators evaluating prey. Around her, the bridge crew worked at stations that displayed information in ways that would seem like magic to other species, their technology so far beyond galactic standards that it might as well have been supernatural. All ships report ready. For combat, announced Commander Jun-woo from his tactical station. Quantum weapons are charged, adaptive armor is active, and fighter squadrons are prepared for immediate launch. The enemy fleet consists of 47 biological vessels with energy signatures suggesting living armor and organic weapon systems. Open channels to both the Keth fleet and the Valani defenders, Yoon-suk ordered, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never encountered an enemy that could threaten her ship. It is time to introduce ourselves to the galaxy. The transmission that reached both fleets was broadcast on frequencies that penetrated every communication system in the combat zone, delivered in perfect translations that demonstrated linguistic capabilities far beyond anything the galaxy had seen before. "This is Captain Yoon-suk of the Human Colonial Defense Fleet," the message began, her words carrying undertones that somehow conveyed both authority and barely controlled violence. "The Keth Empire will immediately cease all hostile actions against the Valani Trade Consortium and withdraw from this system." On the Keth flagship, General Krexvor felt something he had never experienced before in his long career of conquest: uncertainty. The ships that had appeared were clearly designed for war, but their technology seemed impossibly advanced, and their positioning demonstrated tactical thinking that suggested military experience far beyond what any known peaceful species possessed. "What do we know about these humans?" he demanded, his biochemical systems automatically releasing stress hormones that sharpened his combat reflexes, while his officers frantically searched their databases for any reference to this unknown species. "No records exist of any species called humans," his intelligence officer reported, her voice carrying the confusion of someone whose carefully maintained databases had suddenly proved worthless. "The sector they emerged from is listed in all galactic charts as uninhabited space avoided by all major civilizations due to unspecified hazards." Captain Yoon-suk waited exactly 30 seconds for a response before issuing her second transmission, this one directed specifically at the Keth fleet with undertones that triggered prey responses in most organic nervous systems. "You have 10 seconds to begin withdrawal, or we will interpret your continued presence as hostile intent and respond accordingly." Krexvor's mandibles clicked with rage at the presumption of these unknown aliens who dared to threaten the mighty Keth Empire. "Send them our standard intimidation response," he ordered. "Let them see what happens to species that interfere with our rightful conquests." The Keth reply came in the form of bioplasma cannons targeting the nearest human ship, a destroyer, called the Incheon's Wrath. The organic weapons fired energy beams that had previously destroyed every ship they had encountered, but when the crackling green energy struck the human vessel's adaptive armor, it simply dissipated harmlessly across quantum shift defensive fields that redistributed the incoming force across multiple dimensions. Commander Jun-woo watched the failed attack with the detached interest of a scientist observing a predictable experiment. "Enemy weapons appear to be standard bioplasma technology operating on principles we mastered decades ago," he reported calmly. "Threat assessment, minimal. Recommend immediate tactical response to demonstrate superior capabilities. All ships, open fire," Captain Yoon-suk ordered, her voice carrying the cold satisfaction of a predator finally allowed to hunt. "Target their weapon systems first. Let them understand what they are facing before we decide whether to destroy them completely." The human fleet's response was swift and devastating in ways that redefined what the watching species thought was possible in space combat. Quantum cannons fired beams of coherent energy that ignored the Keth bioarmor and struck directly at the molecular bonds holding their ships together. Point defense systems activated that could track and destroy incoming projectiles before they fully materialized in normal space. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bays and began moving in three-dimensional patterns that treated conventional physics as merely one option among many. General Krexivor felt his bioship shudder as another wave of human quantum weapons struck his fleet, each impact demonstrating technology so far beyond Keth capabilities that his tactical officers were struggling to understand what they were even seeing on their organic sensors. The humans had disabled 7 of his bioships without destroying them, leaving them drifting helplessly in space as clear demonstrations of superior force, while his remaining vessels continued their increasingly desperate attempts to fight back. "Send the call for reinforcements," he ordered, his mandibles clicking with the stress patterns that indicated a Keth commander facing an impossible situation. "Deploy emergency hyperspace beacons and request immediate assistance from the Grand Fleet. These humans must be some kind of unknown predator species that has been hiding in the dead sectors, waiting for an opportunity to emerge." His communications. Officer worked frantically at her biocontrols, sending signals that would summon every available Keth warship within hyperspace range. "General, the Grand Fleet acknowledges our distress call and is preparing for immediate deployment. Admiral Sektar estimates arrival in 4 hours with 63 additional bioships, including 3 command Leviathans." Admiral Taemin received the intelligence report about incoming Keth reinforcements while studying tactical displays that showed his fleet maintaining perfect formation around the Vellani homeworld. His cybernetic eye processed the data with mechanical precision, while his organic brain considered the strategic implications of what was clearly becoming a much larger conflict than originally anticipated. "Sir, long-range sensors detect massive hyperspace disturbances approaching from Keth space," reported Commander Jun Wu from his tactical station. "Configuration suggests a major fleet deployment including vessel types we have not previously encountered. Estimated time to arrival is 3 hours and 40 minutes. The Admiral nodded as he considered his options. The approaching Keth fleet would outnumber his forces by more than 5 to 1, but numbers had never been the deciding factor in human military doctrine because they had learned to fight as apex predators rather than herd animals. "Signal all ships to implement Protocol Mongoose," he ordered, referencing the anti-predator tactics that humanity had developed after studying Earth's most successful persistence hunters. Captain Un Suk received the Protocol Mongoose authorization and felt the familiar surge of predatory satisfaction that came with being unleashed to fight without restraint. "All stations, activate Combat Protocol 77 Alpha," she announced to her crew. "Full tactical deployment, quantum, weapons free, and initiate psychological warfare packages. We are about to show the Keith Empire why humanity survived on a death world." The Soul's Revenge began broadcasting on frequencies that penetrated Keth bioship communication networks, flooding their organic systems with sounds that had been carefully designed to trigger maximum stress responses in predatory species. The transmission consisted of Earth's heaviest metal music combined with acoustic patterns that mimicked the territorial calls of persistence hunters, creating an audio assault that made the Keth crews feel like prey being stalked by creatures from their worst evolutionary nightmares. Wing Commander Da Yun launched her fighter squadrons in attack formations that demonstrated 3-dimensional tactical thinking beyond anything the Keth had encountered. Her pilots moved through space like apex predators, hunting in coordinated packs, their ships performing maneuvers that treated the conventional limitations of physics as suggestions rather than absolute laws, while their quantum engines allowed acceleration patterns that should have liquefied any organic crew. "Target their propulsion systems first," she ordered over the squadron communication channels. "We want them alive and functional so they can report back to their empire about what happens when you threaten peaceful species in human-protected space." The human fighters descended on the Keth bioships like wolves attacking a herd of creatures that had never learned to defend themselves against coordinated predators. Their weapons carved precise holes in biological armor that disabled mobility without causing fatal damage, leaving the massive vessels drifting helplessly while their crews experienced the psychological trauma of being outfought by enemies they could not understand. Colonel Haye-jin stood in the boarding bay of her assault ship, watching her Marines prepare for combat in environments that would kill most galactic species within minutes. Her soldiers wore armor that could adapt to any atmospheric conditions while carrying weapons designed to function in everything from crushing gravity to hard vacuum, their equipment representing centuries of human experience fighting in hostile environments. "Remember, we want prisoners for intelligence gathering," she announced to her troops as they checked their gear one final time. These bioships have crews that have never faced enemies who fight back effectively. Use their psychological weaknesses against them and show them what happens when persistence hunters decide you are prey. The Marines launched from their assault ship in powered armor that allowed them to move through space like human-shaped missiles, their targeting systems guiding them toward airlocks and hull breaches on disabled Keth vessels. Once inside the bioships, they moved with the coordinated efficiency of pack hunters, their enhanced reflexes and advanced weapons making them nearly invincible against enemies who had never learned to fight defensively. Chief Engineer Min Jun monitored the performance of human technology during the battle and marveled at how effectively their quantum weapons penetrated Keth bioarmor. "Captain, their biological defenses are impressive, but they operate on principles we understood decades ago," he reported. "Our adaptive systems are learning their defensive patterns faster than they can modify them. We could disable their entire fleet within the next hour if necessary." Dr. So Young analyzed the psychological impact of human combat methods on both the Keth attackers and the Villani observers, noting how differently the two species were responding to witnessing humanity's military capabilities. "The Keth are experiencing classic predator shock when encountering superior hunters," she reported. "But the Villani are showing amazement rather than fear, which suggests they understand we are protecting them rather than threatening them." On the surface of Serenity's edge, Elder Thelnari watched the battle through orbital sensors with emotions that her people had no words to describe. The humans fought with precision and efficiency that seemed almost supernatural. Their ships, moving in patterns that suggested they had been studying warfare for much longer than any peaceful species could imagine. "How do they coordinate their movements so perfectly?" asked Counselor Merdan as they watched human fighters perform attack runs that required split-second timing across dozens of vessels simultaneously. "Their tactical unity suggests either telepathic communication or technology far beyond our understanding." "Both, I suspect," Thelnari replied, her light patterns shifting to colors that indicated profound respect mixed with careful wariness. "These humans clearly come from a military culture that has been fighting serious wars for a very long time. They move like creatures that were born for battle." General Krexvor watched his bioships being systematically disabled by enemies who seemed to understand combat in ways that made his centuries of experience feel like the fumbling of an inexperienced youth. The humans targeted his vessels with surgical precision, removing their ability to fight without destroying them completely, which was somehow more terrifying than simple destruction would have been. "They are taking prisoners," reported his tactical officer, her voice carrying confusion and growing fear. "Human boarding parties have secured 3 of our disabled ships and are capturing crew members for unknown purposes. General, they fight like predators who have been hunting for millions of years." The arrival of Admiral Sektar and the Keth Grand Fleet should have changed the tactical situation dramatically, but instead it simply provided the humans with more targets to demonstrate their overwhelming superiority. The 63 additional bioships that emerged from hyperspace found themselves facing human vessels that had been analyzing Keth technology and tactics for hours and were ready to implement countermeasures that made the newcomers' weapons and defenses effectively useless. Admiral Taymin watched the Keth. Reinforcements arrive and felt the cold satisfaction of a strategic plan unfolding exactly as predicted. "Signal all ships to maintain current engagement protocols," he ordered. "We want the entire Keth fleet to witness what happens when they threaten species under human protection. This demonstration will save lives by preventing future conflicts." Captain Yunsuk coordinated the engagement of the expanded Keth fleet with tactical precision that demonstrated why humanity had survived on a planet where everything was trying to kill them. Her quantum weapons carved through bioarmor like cutting tools through soft vegetation, while her defensive systems rendered Keth attacks completely ineffective, creating a one-sided battle that redefined what the galaxy thought was possible in space combat. Wing Commander Da Yoon led her fighters in attack patterns that surrounded the entire Keth Grand Fleet, her pilots moving in 3-dimensional formations that treated space combat like aerial hunting on a planetary scale. Admiral Taymin stood in the conference chamber aboard the Soul's Revenge, looking out at the aftermath of what would become known throughout the galaxy as the Battle of Serenity's Edge. 70 Keth bioships drifted powerlessly in space around the Villani homeworld, their crews alive but thoroughly defeated. while 12 human warships maintained perfect formation as silent guardians of a species they had never met before today. The formal surrender had taken place 6 hours ago, when Admiral Sektar transmitted unconditional withdrawal terms that included immediate cessation of all hostilities against the Volani Trade Consortium and recognition of human authority in what the Keth now understood was no longer uncontested space. The psychological impact of losing 70% of their grand fleet in a single engagement had shattered the Keth Empire's confidence in their own military supremacy. "Sir, we are receiving diplomatic communications from 47 different galactic civilizations," reported Commander Jun Wu from his station. "Word of our intervention has spread throughout known space faster than our analysts predicted. Every major power wants to establish formal contact with humanity immediately." Dr. So Young looked up from her analysis of the intercepted communications with an expression that mixed fascination with concern. "Admiral, the galaxy is reacting with everything from amazement to terror at the discovery that we exist. Several species are requesting immediate non-aggression pacts, while others are offering trade agreements and military alliances. The Galactic Council has called an emergency session to address what they are calling the human emergence." Tae Min nodded as he considered the implications of humanity's sudden visibility to galactic civilization. For over a century, they had remained hidden in the sectors that other species avoided, building their military capabilities and studying the various alien cultures while remaining undetected. That careful anonymity was now permanently ended, and they would need to decide how to interact with a galaxy that had just learned it contained predators more dangerous than anything they had previously imagined. Elder Thelnari arrived aboard the human flagship in a diplomatic shuttle that moved slowly and carefully between the drifting Keth vessels, her crystalline form pulsing with light patterns that conveyed profound gratitude mixed with careful respect. She had requested this meeting to formally thank humanity for their intervention and to begin the process of understanding who these remarkable warriors actually were. Captain Yun Suk met the Volani elder in a conference room that had been carefully prepared for first contact with a species whose physiology required different atmospheric conditions than humans preferred. The chamber's environmental systems could adapt to nearly any combination of gases and pressures that carbon-based life might require. Another demonstration of human technological capabilities that impressed their alien guests. "Elder Thelnari, I am Captain Yun Suk of the Human Colonial Defense Fleet," she said, through translation systems that had analyzed Volani language patterns during the battle and could now provide perfect real-time communication. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you aboard our ship, and I am pleased that we arrived in time to prevent the destruction of your people." Thelnari's light patterns shifted to the deep gold that indicated overwhelming gratitude in Volani culture. "Captain Yun Suk, your people have saved not just our lives but our entire civilization from extinction. The Keth Empire would have destroyed everything we had built over thousands of years if you had not answered our call for help. We are forever in your debt." Dr. So Young joined the meeting to begin the process of cultural exchange that would be necessary for long-term relations between their species. "Elder Thelnari, we would like to learn about Volani culture and share information about humanity as well. We believe that peaceful species should support each other against predators who threaten galactic stability." The conversation that followed lasted for several hours as both species began to understand each other's history and capabilities. The Volani learned that humanity had evolved on a world so dangerous that most galactic species would consider it uninhabitable, where survival required constant warfare against hostile environments and predatory creatures. The humans learned that the Volani had built one of the galaxy's most advanced trading networks through purely peaceful means, creating prosperity through cooperation rather than conquest. Colonel Hyajin reported the results of interrogating captured Keth prisoners, information that would prove crucial for understanding the broader threat that the Empire represented to galactic peace. "Sir, the Keth have conquered 43 star systems over the past 2 centuries, and they were planning to use Volani technology to accelerate their expansion into new sectors. Their biological ships can be mass-produced once they have sufficient organic resources, and their population grows rapidly when they have access to conquered worlds." The intelligence painted a picture of an empire that would continue expanding until someone stopped them permanently, making this intervention about much more than just saving the Volani. What are their current military capabilities after this? Engagement? Taemin asked, because understanding the long-term strategic situation was essential for planning humanity's next moves. They have approximately 200 bioships remaining in various sectors of their territory, Commander Jun-woo reported, after analyzing data recovered from captured Keth vessels. However, our demonstration here has apparently caused panic throughout their command structure. Multiple sectors are requesting permission to negotiate separate peace agreements rather than risk facing human forces. Wing Commander Da-Yun had been analyzing the technical capabilities of Keth bioships, and her report provided additional context for understanding their military threat. Their organic technology is impressive, but limited by biological constraints that our quantum systems can exploit. More importantly, their tactical doctrine assumes they will always face enemies who are less capable than they are. They have no experience fighting opponents who understand warfare better than they do. Chief Engineer Min Jun had been studying captured Keth technology, and his analysis revealed possibilities that could benefit both humanity and the peaceful species of the galaxy. Sir, their bioengineering techniques could be adapted for peaceful purposes like medical treatment and environmental restoration. If we could convince them to abandon conquest in favor of cooperation, their knowledge combined with our technology could solve problems throughout galactic civilization. Admiral Taemin considered all the information he had received before making the decision that would establish humanity's role in galactic affairs. Send a message to the Keth Empire command structure, he ordered. Inform them that humanity is willing to negotiate a permanent peace agreement that includes reparations to the Vallani and a commitment to cease all aggressive expansion. If they refuse, we will systematically dismantle their military capabilities until they have no choice but to accept our terms. The message that reached Keth space carried undertones that conveyed absolute certainty and unlimited capability, making it clear that humanity possessed both the willingness and the ability to destroy their empire completely if they chose to continue their predatory behavior. The response came within hours as the Keth leadership realized they had encountered a species that could end their civilization without significant effort. Dr. So-young began establishing the framework for what would become the Galactic Protection. Protocols, agreements between humanity and peaceful species that would prevent future predatory expansion while encouraging cooperation and cultural exchange. The galaxy needs a new approach to handling aggressive civilizations, she explained to Elderthel Nari during one of their planning sessions. Peaceful species should not have to face extinction because they chose cooperation over conquest. Captain Yoon Suk found herself appointed as humanity's first official ambassador to the Galactic Council, a role that would require her to represent a species that most aliens still understood only through legends and whispered warnings. The challenge will be convincing other civilizations that we are protectors rather than conquerors, she explained to her staff as they prepared for the diplomatic missions that would follow their military victory. Colonel Hyejin established the first multi-species military training academy on a neutral world in Vallani space, where officers from peaceful civilizations could learn defensive tactics and strategy from humans who understood warfare as both art and science. Most species think of military force as something to be avoided, she explained to her first class of alien students. We will teach you that it is a tool that can protect everything you value when used correctly. Commander Jun-woo began working with Vallani engineers to develop defensive technologies that could protect peaceful species without giving them the capability to become aggressive themselves. The collaboration produced shield systems and detection networks that made sneak attacks much more difficult while avoiding the creation of offensive weapons that could be used for conquest. Wing Commander Da-Yun trained pilots from multiple species in three-dimensional combat techniques, teaching them to think like persistence hunters rather than prey animals when facing hostile forces.